how do we build strong foundations for our family life? The home environment we create for our children is going to be one of the most significant influences on them. We asked some of the children we filmed what their family means to them.
We all like to be together, so we all get together once a week or something and have some fun. We chat, and we just really love each other.
I think the most important thing is being in a family is that you stick together, and whatever you're going through, you must keep strong.
Probably going to take the dog for a walk with Mum and Dad and my brother.
Why do you like that?
Because the dog's funny and once he pulled my dad into a muddy puddle.
It just feels like nice to be with your family.
Yeah, I get that as well.
Yeah, me too.
Loads and loads of cousins and aunts. And on our dad's side, there's 2 great grannies, which is quite amazing.
I think that being a family is mostly about having each other at your side, so when you're in trouble that that the other person can always be there for you.
I like the love of my family.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at 4 purposes of the family. The first purpose is that a family provides support. Someone said, home is a place where you can say what you like. No one listens to you anyway.
As they grow up, children will experience all kinds of disappointment, struggles, rejection, peer pressure, failure, and so on. Even at a young age in the school playground, our children can feel hurt and rejected. Our family needs to be the place where they know they'll always receive our acceptance, love, encouragement, comfort, and support, where they feel completely safe, and that whatever happens, their family is there for them.
Kay Warren, an American mother, recounted an incident with her daughter Amy, who was desperate to join the cheerleading team in her high school. This is what she said. It really meant a lot to Amy. She wanted to be on that team. She practiced really hard. She went to all of the rehearsals. The day came, she went, and she had a great tryout. I was really proud of her. But she didn't make the team. She was devastated. All the way home, I drove this sobbing, inconsolable girl. There was nothing I could say that would comfort her. She ran upstairs, into her room, into the walk-in cupboard, and slammed the door. I didn't know what to do. So, the 4 of us, my husband and I and the 2 boys, decided to get into the cupboard with her. And we were all crying and sobbing. After we'd been in there for a while, wiping our noses on our sleeves, I said to one of the boys, go and get some tissues. A few moments later, he came back with 1 tissue and he was blowing his nose. We laughed and the mood was broken. What had been a tragedy in her life turned into something that became a shared family experience.
Amy said later to her mother, that event, almost more than anything else in my life, cemented for me what our family is. You guys were there for me. You didn't tell me to buck up. You didn't tell me, in the scheme of things, this is not that important, you'll get over it. You just got in there and cried with me.
In our schools in our country, there's a kind of a mini Olympics, and our son was given a position of sub, and he was kind of disappointed in how we dealt with that, because we could say, it's okay. We had to let him kind of mourn that and just mourn with him on that, and that's kind of hard, but yet it's important to mourn with him on that rather than just placating it or saying so. And that's with lots of things in life.
This year he's on the team, so it's in the next couple of weeks, so we're delighted. So he'll get to run.
So, the first purpose of the family is to provide support. A second purpose is to provide fun. Family needs to be a place where we enjoy each other's company, where we're able to lighten up and there's plenty of laughter, where we're not always in a rush and not always telling them off. Children thrive on fun.
We're so grateful to the couple who suggested to us that we set aside some time once a week as a family to have fun together.
When my children were small, they used to have what they call a family night. They would drag their mattresses into our bedroom once a week and sleep on the floor. And once a month, we'd have a super family night. We'd all drag our mattresses downstairs and sleep on the lounge floor together. Now, there's no reason why 4 people with perfectly good beds upstairs should want to do that, except that it's fun.
We started our weekly family time when our 3 oldest children were 6, 4 and 2. I was working a lot of evenings and weekends were really busy. We called it our family night. We set aside at least 2 hours and we stopped doing everything else and just had fun together. And we guarded this time from interruptions from the phone or other people.
Initially, we organised it between 5 and 7 p.m. on a midweek evening around a meal and some games. Then, when they were old enough, each child took it in turns to choose their favourite menu and what activity we did.
Sometimes one child would choose something outdoors, such as playing cricket or going rollerblading. At other times, we stayed indoors and would play a party game such as hide and seek or a favourite board game. Or we might watch a DVD together or make something like Christmas cards or a scrapbook with old photos. As the children got older, we adapted the timing and activity to their age and stage and tried to make it fun for everyone.
We also worked it around homework or music practice. But we also tried to make sure our children weren't involved in so many after-school activities that our time together was pushed out.
This weekly family night was often a challenge to fit in, and sometimes when we did, it was a total disaster. There were fights and tears, and the game descended into squabbling about the rules or about who'd won. And sometimes it seemed impossible to get everyone's agreement about what we might do.
We just have a great time sitting around and enjoying each other's company. We do have show and tell. Yeah, I was going to mention that. The kids have always got something they want to present to the family. And so they get up and they have this either little Lego people or a drawing or something that they created. And they can be quite intricate, and that's really good fun.
I think it's important because it's our special time and we get to know each other, and it's time when they can tell me things. It's time when we're not in a rush, and it's not about meeting deadlines or other people's agendas. It's just us hanging out.
We recently discovered badminton, which I, up till that point, had thought that's a really sissy sport, and would much rather have played squash or tennis. But in fact, we found that when we looked at it, badminton just works for the whole family. So it's something that we can all go off and do together.
We just have fun together, and it's always also about the kind of food we're going to eat on the night. There's always lots of excitement about that, and they'll sometimes just make up things like, let's have a cherry cake or something that we've never had before, and then we've got to make that. And
we're just together, and it's a given. It's an immovable part of the week.
Even if people do phone us and stuff and say, look, are you free? The general answer is no, unless the children agree that we are free. And if they want to delay it, then they can.
And they'll actually call it a family date sometimes.
Yeah.
So they really see it as something special that belongs to just us as a family.
Our family night was one of the best commitments we ever made for our family to keep having fun together. You'll see we've put some other suggested activities in the manual.
So, second, a family provides fun. A third purpose of the family is to provide a moral compass. Someone said, we spend 2 years teaching our children to walk and talk, and the rest of the time telling them to sit down and keep quiet.
The family is where children learn the difference between good and bad behaviour, right and wrong choices. Children don't know that intuitively. The family is where they learn. They learn from reaping the consequences of their mistakes in a safe environment. They learn to think about others and to take responsibility to help around the house. They learn about sharing, that it's good to be kind and generous.
Much of it they learn through a steady drip feed of these values, mainly as they watch us. It's no coincidence that human offspring are dependent on their parents for much longer than any animals, for more or less 18 years. Children need all that time because there's a lot to learn.
The fourth purpose, and the most important of all, is that the family is the place where children learn to relate. Relationships are ultimately what life is all about, and the family is where we first learn to love.
The different relationships within the family, parent and child, mother and father, brothers and sisters, with grandparents, cousins and so on, all provide opportunities for children to learn valuable lessons about how relationships work.
Children learn how to relate in a number of ways, through experiencing, observing and practicing relationships.
Experiencing the unconditional love and acceptance of their parents is where the learning starts and gives a child an inner confidence. Children need that confidence to form healthy relationships, to be open, to trust, to share their thoughts and feelings with others.
Some children grow up thinking they could never do enough to win their parents' approval, and they're constantly craving it. As a result, they're not free to be themselves or to look outwards to others. They may bully and throw their weight around because they feel insecure. There are lots of ways that we can boost a child's confidence.
You know, the words we speak are important. And I think they're particularly important for the child that at that time doesn't seem to have much going for them. They're not picked first when the captains are asked to pick teams. They're not great academically. You know. And I think of the little boy, I think he was about 5 or 6 years old, and he was in the egg and spoon race, and he came in last. He always came in last in everything. But as he left, his grandmother put her arm around him and said, "You were the only one whose egg didn't fall off the spoon." We all need a grandmother like that.
Psychologists talk about 3 fundamental needs that we all have for security, self-worth and significance. These needs are foundational to a child's emotional well-being and should initially be met by their family.
These needs are met when our children know their love for who they are, not just for what they achieve, nor for what they look like, nor for how they behave. In other words, that they're loved unconditionally. This is how Ross Campbell puts it in his book, How to Really Love Your Child. If I only love my children and convey my love when they please me, they will not feel genuinely loved. They will be insecure. It will damage their self-image and actually prevent them from moving on to better self-control and more mature behaviour.
I had 2 different upbringings. So I was fostered when I was 4 years old. And so I had the upbringing with my natural parents, and that was in very abusive, very unstable, unsettled sort of home life. And then going into my foster parents' household where, you know, when Phil first came to the family, it was like hugs all round and kisses, and he was like, "Oh no, I can't cope." It was all a bit too much, yeah. But they've always been very huggy, and the words that they use, really loving words, they really build you up. And I think I've taken from that into how I am with Phil and with the children, that I don't think you can tell your children I love you enough. And, you know, when especially the older 2, "Shh, Mum, I don't care," so that's my job, you know. So I always make sure that I go slightly over the top with it.
Our own Christian perspective is that ultimately we derive our sense of security, self-worth and significance through discovering God's unconditional love for us. But God puts us as parents in his place so that our children grow up with an experience of our unconditional love from their very first moments.
Children also learn by observing relationships. This is true whether we're parenting as a couple or on our own. If we're parenting together, the relationship between us will be the most important. It acts as a role model. Our children take in how we relate, how we resolve conflict, whether we show each other physical affection, whether we listen to each other, and whether we're kind to one another. The arrival of children has a big impact on a couple's relationship.
The 2 big things that tend to happen to new parents, most obviously for their relationship. One is it's an utterly exhausting process. Lack of sleep makes it extremely hard to communicate successfully. None of us communicate terribly well when we're tired. And also it encourages us to drift apart a little bit because it's easy to lose your focus on time for yourselves because all of your time is given to the baby.
I would say that the biggest challenge is for our relationship, because having children definitely has a big impact upon our marriage. The fact that we have less time together, my time is taken up with the baby a lot, with feeding and lack of sleep, making sure that we still love each other.
And I think we've really consciously tried, haven't we, to look after our marriage as well as devoting time to the children.
I remember one time when I was I think it was about 10, I said to my mum, "You love me more than Dad." And she said, "No, Dad comes first." And I suppose Diane comes first. But the children are really important. But our relationship is what must be the foundation of our marriage, and that filters down to the children. And that I still remember that line. I was hurt, but it was like a boundary that was correct, and I have to remember that we do invest our time in our marriage together.
For those of you who are parenting as a couple, it's so important to look after your relationship.
We run another course called the Marriage Course, and we'd strongly encourage you to go on it, or something similar, whether you're married or not. Investing in your relationship will make a huge difference, not only to you, but also to your children.
If you're parenting on your own, it's very helpful for your children to see healthy role models of two-parent families.
As a single parent, it's crucial to have good role models around you.
When we go to church, they get to see two-parent families and they see how life is different for them, and they see that their parents aren't always so stressed out, they haven't got the struggles that I have to deal with, they get to balance it out between two people. And I really want them to see the good side of having a two-parent family.
So extended family and friends, and that's been very important to us, for her to have these role models that she still looks up to now and has a lot of respect for.
I really want them just to grow seeing it rather than me having to tell them. I want them to see from their friends and from other people around them how important marriage is and how people benefit from it and how it shapes society.
If you're separated or divorced, we'd want to encourage you to do everything you can to maintain the best possible relationship with your child's other parent. It may well involve effort and perseverance, but it can make a huge difference to a child's happiness and well-being. We know a 14-year-old boy whose parents split up 4 years ago. He told us what it meant for him when his parents made a hard decision to come to his school together. He said, "A couple of months ago it was my birthday and I was playing in a football match. All I wanted was for my parents to be there. It was one of the best days of my life, just to see them together."
Keeping a relationship going with my daughter's father has not been easy all the time. In the beginning, I found it very difficult because I had lots of hurts. I think I felt quite proud at the beginning that I was doing it on my own, and I resented him having any part in it, so I didn't make enough of an effort. I always made an effort not to say anything bad about him, but I found it very difficult to say anything good. And with hindsight, I think I should have tried a bit harder.
So they will see, you know, sometimes mummy and daddy don't get on, and they see they are getting on really well. You know, they can have, like, with my son's dad, he'll come over for a meal sometimes, we'll talk on the phone, and my son and my daughter both see that we can get on well for the sake of them. So they do see that although there's ups and downs, we can be positive towards each other.
Finally, children learn to relate through practicing relationships with a brother or sister, if they have one, and with friends. They're learning to love. Now, I understand that you may not describe sibling relationships quite like that. However, in family life, they're learning to play and have fun together and to look out for each other. They're learning how to handle arguments. They're learning slowly, with our help, how to apologise and to forgive. They're learning to get on.
I know from the start, Mum and Dad have been, from their experience of their actual brothers and sisters, they're not very close. They've actually wanted us and worked very hard to us to bond. For about 20 years, me and Christian have actually shared a room. All up to I think I was 20, we shared a room and a bunk bed, which, you know, you learn to tolerate each other as men, touching from top to bottom and sharing a room. You learn to get along, I suppose.
But growing up, you do, like, there is, like, that awkwardness, like, if he brought his friends round, it's just like, oh, go away, sister, you're, like, weird, or whatever. But, you know, as you grow up, you get more mature, and obviously, you know, you bond with the opposite sex and stuff, so it's actually a lot easier to get along, and you actually realise you've got cool brothers, or
yeah, you do have cool brothers.
No family is perfect. We may be struggling in our marriage. We may be parenting on our own. We may be experiencing sibling rivalry. No doubt, we will all be acutely aware of our inadequacies. But still, the family is the best training ground where children learn invaluable lessons for life.
We want you to turn now in your manuals to the exercise called Taking Stock of Your Parenting. And what we suggest is that you look over those statements and think about how true each one is for you as a family. The aim is to get you to think about what your priorities are as a parent.
Welcome back. We're now moving on to part 2, how we establish patterns for a healthy family life.
As parents, one of the most empowering things we can do is to set aside time to step back and think about our parenting and ask ourselves some questions.
Questions like, what's our vision for our family life? What are our goals? What do we want our children's memories to be of us and of their home in 20 years' time?
Will our children associate our home with having fun together as a family, being a place where they're listened to, knowing where the boundaries lie and knowing that when they got it wrong, there was forgiveness and a new start?
In this section, we want to look at 3 practical ways we can be deliberate in putting our goals into action.
These things aren't complicated, but they can be challenging and may mean we have to make some changes in our routines, habits and lifestyle. But as we do so, we can be confident we're building on the right foundations.
First, the importance of play. Children thrive on play. They need masses of it. Jean Piaget, the child psychologist, said, play is the work of children. Play comes naturally to them, and as parents we must allow and even encourage them to play, even though it may be messy or noisy and seem to us like a waste of time.
Play to adults does not look like very much. It's really kids just messing about. Often we get conned into buying them expensive toys and so on, but they don't need that. Play is the natural drive to explore and learn that is in every child. And it's absolutely essential to their development in every way, socially, cognitively, emotionally and physically. Without real play, children are going to be developmentally at risk.
My son loves to play with cars and doing painting and Play-Doh. They both love to make up little fantasies with animals and Barbie dolls, and my daughter just loves to play things like football, and then she'll go to the other extreme of wanting to do hair and nails and girly things.
And I chase Bart sometimes in the house.
And we sometimes throw water bombs.
Well, I play with these magnetic things that you have like a ball and you attach things to it and you make like motorbikes and helicopters and stuff. Me and like my mum always play like Scrabble. I do a lot of reading indoors when it's a rainy day or something, and I help my brother with reading when he needs it, and I just pretty much read all the time. I would play with my Lego because I love Lego.
When I was younger, I used to always play imaginative games with my sister.
Well, we like playing board games and card games sometimes.
Yeah. Board games, a bit of card games. We're not really good at card games.
Of course, there are many different types of play. For example, indoor play, such as sitting on the floor with a 9-month-old building bricks, doing jigsaws with a toddler, cooking or painting or making things with an older child. Sometimes the best toys don't need to cost much. I remember when our children were all little and we had to get a new washing machine. Nicky gave them the box that it came in to play with. He cut out a window on one side and a door on the other side and turned it into the best playhouse they ever had.
And it lasted slightly longer than the washing machine. There's also outdoor play, going to the park so they can run and jump and go on the swings or the slide, going to the adventure playground or climbing trees, allowing them to take risks within sensible guidelines, learning to swim, to rollerblade or to ride a bike. Just getting outside and having some space is good for everyone.
They have a playhouse outside which has their sort of garden toys in it and just outside things, and they like doing make-believe stuff out there and cooking and playing house.
Me and Tom and Mimi used to play this water game, and we used to fill up this my brother's little water bucket, because he got a water gun, and we used to always fill it up, and we used to make a track down the trampoline. We slided down it, we poured some water on everybody.
If Dad's outside, we normally help him with the gardening.
Oh, do you like doing that?
Yeah, we just get in some old clothes and then start doing it. It's really fun. We play this army game, like he's an army tank and I'm a submarine, and we pretend like there's an army attacking, and we have to go like run to the base, run back.
Some of the really like simple things are just sticks and rocks.
That's it.
And sand and water. they go ballistic about those sort of things. And our oldest son is just into bugs, and he'll come and run up to you with a caterpillar in his hand, or we had a blindworm recently as well, which is it's like a lizard without legs, but it looks like a snake, so it causes a bit of reaction from people in the general neighbourhood.
Yeah. I like playing outside with my friends with my lightsabers because I've got lots of them, and whacking bushes and playing on the swing sometimes.
Go down to the park, she will somewhere, no matter where she goes, she will find a snail that she believes is an orphan and needs a home. So she then spends hours collecting leaves and twigs and things to make homes and bedrooms and gardens and food and tables for the snails, and then gets really distraught if it's time to leave it.
As well as developing their imagination and creativity, another important benefit of play is the social dimension. As they play with other children, they learn to share, to take it in turns, to communicate, to resolve arguments, to make friends.
A lot of our children's play will be and should be on their own or with a brother or sister, but some of it needs to be with us.
I remember one very wet summer's day in Scotland when our children were aged between 6 and 12, and I was tempted to say that they could all stay inside and watch a DVD. But we went outside instead and ended up sliding down a steep, very muddy hill on black plastic dustbin bags. We came back completely soaked and covered in mud from head to toe, and they thought it was the best day of the whole holiday.
Our children want to be where the fun is, and encouraging them to play makes our home a fun place to be.
Some parents find it hard to allow play. Various things can get in the way. Perhaps we're anxious that they'll get hurt. Maybe it's because we want to be in control, or we've organised too many activities for them, or we're just too busy ourselves.
However, the biggest threat to active, healthy play comes from a child sitting in front of a screen for hours each day, convenient though that might be for parents.
When children are spending time in front of a screen, they're not spending time doing other things. Television screens and other screens are displacing real-life experience. And in computer terms, before children can do anything in the virtual world, they first have to upload information about the real world. Children have to play. They have to touch things. They have to see real people, and to see real people's expressions on their faces, and look at the sky, and do sorts of things that you and I might take for granted. But this is data that hasn't been uploaded into children's brains yet, and it has to be before they start watching the virtual versions on a computer or on a television screen.
Clearly, allowing a young child to watch an appropriate DVD for a short while is not going to damage him or her for life. But we do have to control how much and exactly what it is that our children are watching.
It's important to ask ourselves questions about the content. Is this providing wholesome entertainment, or is it a negative influence? One mother we know with children aged 6 and 3 told us she never lets her children watch the news because of the shocking images they might see.
And we need to think about the amount of screen time. Is it healthy relaxation, perhaps by allowing them to unwind after school? Or is it harmful inactivity? And about the effect on the family. Is it leading to family bonding, or is it isolating family members from each other?
The age at which our children start to watch television and the number of hours a day they watch, irrespective of whether those programs are so-called educational or not, has a health impact on our children. And therefore, the recommendations are that children under 3 should not have any screen time. That means television or DVDs, ideally. And children who are older than that should be watching a lot less than they are now. So really, all the way up until adulthood, we really ideally shouldn't be spending more than 2 hours a day in front of a television screen.
Well, they think it's bad that if you watch too much, it's bad for your imagination.
Or sometimes I set a time limit. I set the oven timer for an amount of time, and then when that program is over that they're watching, he has to turn it off.
I think the timer is actually a good thing, because you can get involved in other things at home, and you forget how long they've been on the TV.
Well, we used to let them watch TV quite long hours, but now we decide to play with them instead of letting them watch TV.
And we got rid of television. We didn't have television for about 10 years. 10 years we went without a television. And the children, they did so well at school. They were laughing and joking with each other. They were playing games. It was fun.
So we would come back from school, when you're younger, flick on the TV, watch kids' TV up until dinner time when you're very younger. And then we said we moved off and went actually into the country where it was actually hard to get reception. So at that point they decided no. And it was near the summer, and so we went outside and we were on an estate thing of 32 acres. It was quite big with other families. And we went outside and we played, and then there was no time to watch TV. We didn't want to watch TV. We would get home, run outside.
Whether or not you have a TV in your home, we would certainly advise against your children having a TV in their own bedroom.
There seems to be an unwillingness on the part of parents to either prevent or remove TV sets from children's bedrooms. And yet, for example, if we're concerned about obesity, we know that if we put a refrigerator in our child's bedroom, they will eat more. If we put a television set in our child's bedroom, they will watch more. So, if you have a television set in a young child's bedroom, they will watch a lot more television. We know that as a fact. And secondly, of course, we will not have control over what they watch.
And the same goes for electronic games, whether in your home or on handheld devices. We need to limit the time they're spending on them and check the games they're playing.
Video and computer games are very popular with children, and those are games that can be played on handheld devices. They can now be played on phones and on consoles and on a PC. And it's really important as a parent to be aware of the ratings on that game. Much like videos, games have ratings, and that can give you a guide to the type of content that is in that game and whether it's appropriate for your child.
So, we recommend playing electronic games with or alongside our children initially, so that we know what images they're seeing and that we're happy with the content, as what they see they can never unsee.
If we have more than one child, we may have to work harder to find games that are suitable for older and younger siblings to play together, or else have clear rules in place.
For parents, working out these boundaries will be an ongoing challenge, requiring discussion and negotiation.
Our aim as they grow up is to help them develop self-control so that they monitor their own usage.
And if there's one real challenge which we have to revisit again and again, it is that, the boundaries for technology. How much time on television or watching the television, how much time on the computer and on Facebook, how much time using various other gadgets that are in the house.
It's just when I've done my homework, done some reading, done some keyboard practice, and done some tennis practice, stuff like that, and then I can play 5 minutes on the computer.
Matthew loves his games console, and he would happily play on that 24/7 if I let him. So what I did was to ask him what he thought would be a reasonable time. I negotiated with him and got him to come up with a plan of when he thought that would be reasonable, and he did that, and he stuck to it.
So, the first feature of building a healthy family life is the importance of active play. A second feature is the importance of bonding, developing a deep connection with our children.
For children, love is spelt T-I-M-E. Today, however, there is so much pressure on our time.
You know, so often with our children, we say to ourselves, of course I want to spend time with them. But when a slower day comes, when we've decorated the back bedroom, when I've passed the exams, when life is quieter at the office, I have a hunch that that slower day never does come. It is a total illusion. Most of us create busyness from within. If there's anything that matters to us, we need to make time for it now.
We hear a lot today about quality time, by which we mean creating moments when we give our children our undivided attention. People reason that if they can't give their children the amount of time they'd like, quality time will make up for it.
Now, of course, quality time with each child is very important, and we'll talk more about that in the next session. But so also is quantity time. Us being around our children, and our children being around us.
Children need both quality time and quantity time with their parents from their first moments of life.
The first year or so of a little one's life is desperately important from the point of view of familiar faces, familiar places, setting up a safe, secure environment so that attachment can happen, all the hugely important issues of self-esteem and feelings about oneself, but also setting up habits of behaviour, the sort of default mechanism regarding things like sleep and eating and calming that will be with that child for the rest of its life.
Neuroscientists tell us that a child's internal map is largely determined by the relationships formed during the first 18 months of their life. This leads to a dilemma for many of us today about the issue of work.
Most parents will wrestle at some time or another with the question of how much time they should leave their child or children in the care of someone else, whether that's at a daycare centre or with a childminder, nanny, au pair, grandparent or some other relative.
There are hard and complex choices to make, particularly for mothers, with a career they enjoy or with a job that's hard to take a break from, as well as those struggling financially who have to work full-time.
Our conviction is that, if at all possible, one of the parents should be the main caregiver for the first 18 months, and ideally until our child begins school around 5 years old.
If a parent, for whatever reason, can't be the main caregiver, that is, the adult with whom the child spends most of their time, the next best thing is to have one consistent person looking after them who they get to know and trust.
Actually, today, there are increasing opportunities for parents to work part-time or flexi hours, or to job share, or to work from home. And this can all help parents to combine work and family life so that they can still be the main caregiver.
When I was working full-time, I found the most important thing was to work out my priorities with parenting and trying to get the right balance with work and parenting. So you can't do everything. No one is super mum or super dad. And I found I was cutting corners with things like housework or beautifully prepared meals and choosing to spend more time with my daughter. And that was more important.
I try and set aside the weekend for family time, and it's really important to me, it's important to both of us that we have that family time together. And so I'll try and ensure that any extra work I have to do is done during the week and really try and set aside the Saturday, Sunday time for all of us to be together.
Almost every parent has to make sacrifices of some sort. It may mean a change in our lifestyle, such as downsizing our house or car, or not progressing in our career as fast as we'd like for the sake of time with our children.
These early years are critical for the bonding process to happen between parent and child. It's so easy to think we're indispensable at work, but the fact is, the only place we're really indispensable is at home.
A lot of people ask about how you adapt your lifestyle in the very early years to do the best for children. And I always have to answer that little children don't actually care about lifestyle, they care about love. That's what's most important. So the big thing is consistent, one-on-one, loving care, and forget lifestyle.
I didn't get the balance right at all. So I think that having that stay-at-home time with your children is really important, to be able to just be mum. And I think that is a really big, important part to play, to know that eventually I will go off to work and provide financially for my family, but at the moment they need a mum.
The time we spend with our children is more powerful in communicating our love to them than anything we say. But as most of us will know, it's so hard to make that time.
Time with the people who matter most in our lives doesn't just happen. We have to make it happen if we're to build a deep connection with them.
My children are grown now. But I remember when Katie was 4 years old, I'd be reading her a bedtime story and the phone would ring downstairs. And she's, "Daddy, please don't take it now. I'll be back in a moment, Kate." And I'd take that call, then another call, then another call. And then after 30 minutes, I'd realised I'd not finished the bedtime story. And I'd rush back upstairs and the light would still be on. And the book would be on the pillow by her head where I'd left it. But little eyes had fought to stay awake as long as they possibly could. And you know the funny thing about that? I've lived an interesting life. I've written some books. I've been a lawyer. I've lectured all over the world. I've had thousands of urgent calls, all described as urgent. But as I look back, I can't remember one that couldn't have waited 10 minutes while I finished a bedtime story. But at the time, it seemed so important, and I can't quite remember why.
A third way of building a healthy family life is through establishing routines.
Children flourish where there's routine. Order and stability are deeply comforting for them. Routine brings a sense of security and safety.
One of the healthiest, most important routines is family mealtimes. There's a huge benefit for children in sitting round a table, eating meals together, talking, laughing, discussing as a family, listening to each other. They're learning how to relate to others.
When we look exactly at what's happening at the dinner table, it's almost like having a debrief at the end of the day where each person can offload what they felt, what they experienced. Parents can comment on things. And at a subtle level, children learn when to interrupt in a conversation. They learn about the sound of language and learn manners. They learn how to react to someone else's behavior, what someone else is saying. These sound like subtle things, but they're actually very technical things. And a table is a perfect medium, it's a perfect arena for children to learn these vital life skills.
When it becomes a regular routine, children see eating meals around a table together as completely normal. So, rather than different family members in different rooms, in front of their own TV eating a different meal, everyone is eating the same food in the same place at the same time. And it can become one of the best things we do as a family.
As I was growing up, my father was a great storyteller, and particularly at mealtimes. He'd tell the same stories again and again, many of them from his own childhood. We knew all the punchlines by heart, but we'd still laugh at them. And as children, hearing these stories being retold gave us a great sense of belonging to and identifying with our family.
Of course, mealtimes can easily become the #1 battleground for parents. All of us have to get through the stage of food being thrown on the floor, children messing around, getting off their chairs, not wanting to eat this or that. Our advice to you is persevere. Don't think mealtimes will never work for our family.
For us, the challenges were we didn't have a designated place to eat, and a wise friend of ours said, you know, if there's one thing that you need, it's a dining room table that you can sit round and eat as a family. In fact, they said, you know, sell something else to get one. That's how important they felt it was, and we took that advice on, and when we completed our back room, we put a table and chairs there, and it's been definitely a very rewarding thing to do.
Family meal times are important, not just because we're all together in one room. We all seem to be, we're doing the same thing, and I think the dynamic of the way you just sit together is very communicative. I think they know that we're not going to pick up the phone or leave the room halfway through a conversation, which I do a lot because of the juggling of family life. I think they know they've got us there, and there's a real fluidity to the way the family communicates and engages.
And it's a time like that when you pick up when one of the children is having a problem or an off day or an issue with a friend or an issue with a teacher. You know, it's and sometimes they almost get competitive to tell you what they're doing. And you know, I tend to start with, you know, ask my son first, you know, what did you do in school today? And then the others are trying to tell me something, and then by the time they finish, he's trying to tell me something else. And every so often, the children will naturally ask me, what was my day like?
I spend quite a lot of time underneath the table, cleaning up.
Not only under the table, but also on the wall as well.
We've got one particularly fussy eater, and so it's trying to cook something that we'll all eat. I tried to, and we try and sit at the table and we chat about the day. But sometimes in theory that sounds great, but actually it ends up that you sit there and one's whinging because he doesn't like onions, and they're bickering and they're fighting with each other and they're kicking and they're pushing, and I'm trying to tell them to eat with their mouth closed. And sometimes it's just more mayhem, isn't it? And you think, oh, it's meant to be nice. It's meant to be all family sitting here together, and we end up...
That is great. That's all
it's like a war zone. It's like a war zone.
But it's sometimes in those times when there is a bit of mayhem in the dining room, sitting around the table together, that you catch those little glimpses of their lives and where they're at, and those are the times that you actually love, and they say something deep at those moments. And sometimes it's just by the close contact, being together, that you actually really talk.
Another important routine for family life is what happens around bedtime.
Having a regular bedtime routine has huge benefits for children. It provides a positive end to the day, and it helps a child who's hyped up, overtired or overexcited to calm down.
Having a nightly routine helps them understand our expectation, which is that bedtime is bedtime and that they'll soon be going to sleep.
Recent research shows that children in the UK are suffering from an epidemic of sleep deprivation. Creating a bedtime routine will help children to get enough sleep to be able to function well.
Sleep is just as important as air and food and water for a child's development for a whole variety of reasons. Looking at the effects on the brain, for example, if children don't have enough sleep, they cannot learn as well. They actually learn and consolidate information while they're asleep. In addition to that, there are also benefits to their immune system, and of course their emotional behavior the next day is profoundly affected by sleep deprivation. So sleep is important for reasons that range from immunity to disease, to the ability to learn what they've studied in school, to their behavior the next day, and their ability to pay attention to you as a parent and what you say to them.
This chart, based on medical research, gives an indication of how much sleep children need for their age over a 24-hour period.
Babies aged 3 to 11 months need 14 to 15 hours.
Toddlers aged 12 to 35 months need between 12 and 14 hours.
3 to 6-year-olds need between 11 and 13 hours.
7 to 11-year-olds need between 10 and 11 hours. Good sleep patterns don't just happen. We have to teach them. Sometimes that's really hard. I can still remember the battles with one of our children who refused to stay in bed. At one point, we nearly gave up, but we persisted, and eventually he got the message, and the battle was won.
Being confident that having enough sleep is important for our children's well-being helps us to persevere in getting them to bed. And routine is a great way to do it. Routine means it becomes familiar, it becomes the norm.
The bedtime routine also provided us with a daily opportunity to spend special time with our children. For me, it was a top priority, and Nicky tried to be there whenever possible within the context of his work.
Now, we're not suggesting that bedtime in our home was always this wonderful scene of calmness and smiles. Far from it. And often I'd long for the time when they'd be old enough to put themselves to bed. But looking back, I can see that the nightly routine, week after week, month after month, and year after year, was a great opportunity to connect and communicate with them in a special way. And we always took the opportunity to say a prayer with each of them before turning the light off and saying goodnight.
We've talked to a lot of parents about the benefits of bedtime routines, not just for their children, but so they themselves are not constantly exhausted. We know that achieving a routine has involved a fair amount of frustration and tears along the way and has required perseverance.
Bedtime is my forte. I am a teacher and everything is organised to the last T. So much so that Sam has to fit into the routine.
After baths, we have stories. Usually Mark's home by then, and then he reads the stories. And everyone's quiet and enjoys cuddling up with Mark. And then we brush teeth, and then everybody jumps into their bed.
I think it's important for Samuel to have a routine at bedtime, because otherwise he would play up, and, you know, everyone is much more tired at that time of the evening.
We do get the odd time they'll be kind of, Mum, can I have this? Mum, can I have that? Just because they're not ready to go to bed. But I just find just not giving in to them, just saying, no, you've had all day to go to the toilet, you've had all day to have a drink, now's time for beds. They have to know the strict boundaries that are in place and stick with it.
Yeah, and a bit of a wind-down routine just to say what was the best thing that happened today, and was there anything really sad that happened today that you want to maybe chat about? And so it's an opportunity just to talk.
Yeah, Mark always asks those questions. What was the best thing? What was the worst thing? And it does. It just winds down the day nicely and we end off on a good note.
Yeah. Routines can work as well for the morning as for the nighttime.
Mornings, we invested in what is a little bunny clock, and we set it for 7 o'clock. When it's time for sleeping, the bunny has its eyes closed and ears down, and at 7 o'clock it springs awake, which means that for children, even if they can't tell the time, they know that the bunny is still asleep, and they're not allowed out of their bed until the bunny wakes up. So again, that works very, very well in the mornings.
One final routine that is highly beneficial for children is family holidays. They build a memory bank of shared experiences and the chance to do something different together. They don't need to be expensive or to faraway places in order to have a big impact.
Going on holiday is fantastic. It really is
what we kind of wait all, you know, the few months and all the months of grind. Suddenly, you know, when we're all together, there's no pressure. It's just the most wonderful time.
Well, we normally go, well, not too far away. I mean, we don't actually go out of England. Well, sometimes, once or twice. We've been to France and Florida. And at the summer holidays, we're going to France for 2 weeks. But we're going to this centre park, which we call the fish pool. I don't know why anymore. I've forgotten for the reason. And it's got lots of swimming pools and slides and activities you can do.
Our holiday last year was so important because it really just gave us time to bond together, to relax, to break from the routine and the norm of everyday life. So we didn't have to be on a routine or a strict rota. We could just take it at leisure, although the basic rules did have to still apply. They did still have to be well behaved and keep their manners. But just things like just that little break, like the weekend or week times break from not having to go to bed at a certain time and, you know, not having to be up and out the door at certain times. We could just go at pace and just relaxing all three of us together was a brilliant bonding time.
We've given you some homework to enable you to continue to think about the topics we've raised in this session and how to put them into practice in your family life. We've written the parenting book, and this covers more content on all the topics that we'll be looking at over the 5 sessions of this course.
We're going to close every session with a short prayer, so please stay just as you are as I pray. Lord, we thank you so much for the gift of children. We thank you that family life is the best environment for children to grow up in. We pray that you would help each of us to make our families a place of support, a place of fun, a place where our children learn important values for life, and a place where they learn what loving others is all about. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. You'll see there are some questions in your manual for discussion now.
Next time, we'll be focusing on meeting our children's most important needs. Until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.